Hey Wool Gang, welcome back to Chestnut Woolen Mill. Today we are going to shape the top of our mitten. If you've been following along with this basic mitten pattern, you have knit your cuff in part 1, and then in part 2, we put in the right hand thumb gusset, and we also knit the length that we need for our hand. What I love about teaching basic patterns is that they are extremely customizable. Some people have shorter hands than mine. This particular mitten is made to fit my average sized hand, average woman's hand, but some people have hands that are a little bit shorter. Some people have hands that are a little bit longer. And this is where the fun with basic patterns comes in, because they are completely customizable. For my hand, I had to knit 6 inches from the top of my cuff to where I need the mitten length to fall before I start decreasing and shaping the top of my mitten. I'll show you roughly where that falls on my hand, where you should be falling on your hand. Some people with shorter hands had to knit 5.5 inches. Maybe they knit 5 3/4 inches. Some people with slightly longer fingers than mine, maybe you had to knit 6 1/4 inches from the top of your cuff to where it really needs to fall before we start shaping the mitten. A bit of your pinky should be peeking out, and now we're going to begin the actual shaping. Now the shaping is 2 rounds. Round 1 is going to be our decrease round, and round 2 is going to be a straight knit round. First thing that we need to do is, our mitten total is 42 stitches. We need to put 21 stitches on needle 1. So we've already got 14, and now I'm going to move off until I get 21. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. And now just for propriety's sake, I'm going to count the back and make sure I still have 21 stitches on the back of the hand, on the palm of the hand. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21. Perfect. So we've got our 42 stitches. 21 on the first needle, and 21 divided as evenly as you can on the second and third needle. And now we're going to begin our decreasing. And our decrease round, which we will call round 1 in the instructions in the description box below, we are simply going to knit 1, then we are going to SSK, and then we are going to knit across to the last 3 stitches on our first needle. Well, we're getting slightly better with knitting through the camera lens. I hope everybody is doing well today. It's getting colder and colder in the far north of Maine, up along the Canadian border. Now that I've got to my last 3 stitches on my first needle, I am going to knit 2 together and knit 1. On needle 2, I am going to knit 1, SSK, and then I'm going to knit across my needles until I get to the last 3 stitches on my third needle. Having a little bit of a wonky day today. As I said, it's getting quite cold in the far north of Maine, and we've been using our wood stoves for most of the week. Now that I'm at the last 3 stitches on my 3rd needle, I am going to knit 2 together, slip my marker, and knit 1. And that is our decrease rounds. Round 2 is going to be a straight knitting round. And I'm going to pause, as I did in the last video, and knit row 2 off camera, and then we'll be back once again to do the decrease rounds. And now we are back. We knit round 2, and now we are going to go in for round 3, which is a decrease round, and we are going to knit 1 SSK, which is slip, slip, knit through the back loops, and knit all the way across the needle to our last 3 stitches on this needle. We're going to knit 2 together, and then we are going to knit 1, and on our 2nd needle we are once again going to knit 1 SSK, knit across our 2nd needle, we're going to knit across our 3rd needle until we get to the last 3 stitches on the needle. We're down to the last 3 stitches on needle 3. We're going to knit 2 together. And we are going to knit 1. And now we are going to do round 4. See how you're starting to get a bevel shaping in? You can really start to see your mitten taking shape and coming to life. Now, round 4 is going to be straight knitting. So I'm going to pause the video and come back on the next decrease round. And here we are going to be on round 5, the next decrease round. And this is kind of what your mitten should be looking like. We've got our pinky all closed up, and we're going to continue. Now you should have 17 stitches on needle 1 and 17 stitches between needle 2 and needle 3. And once again, for our decrease round, we are going to knit 1 SSK, knit to the last 3 stitches on needle 1, and yes, people have asked if we're going to do more than basic patterns on our YouTube channel, and the answer to that is absolutely. We're going to do some color work, we're going to do some cabling, and with the last 3 stitches over here, we did our knit 2 together, knit 1. We're going to be doing some cabling. We're going to be doing some bigger projects, some smaller projects. We're going to be felting and weaving and crocheting. There's so much that I do with the fiber that we're just going to share everything with you guys and gals. Now we're on needle 2, so we're going to knit our first stitch, and then we are going to SSK. And we're going to knit across to needle 3. So we got a lot of projects that we are planning: spinning wool, dyeing yarn. We're just going to have a lot of fun with it. We're going to knit across needle 3 to our last 3 stitches. And we have our last 3 stitches, and now we're going to knit 2 together. And knit 1. Round 6 will be straight knit. And you are going to continue to do this pattern where your odd rows are going to be your decrease rows and your even rows are going to be your knit rows until you have 10 stitches left all the way around. 5 stitches on the front, 5 stitches between the back 2 needles, and then I will come back and finish up the shaping of the mitten with you. Okay, wool gang, here we are. We have 10 stitches, 5 on our first needle and 5 on our back needles. We have just completed our last knit round. So we ended on an even round, and this is what our mitten should look like. Now, if you put your mitten on and you are finding that maybe it's a little too flush with your finger and you want to decrease one more time, you can do a decrease round, get yourself down to six stitches, and then 1 more knit round, and that should give you enough play in your fingertip for your middle finger. This is why I love customizable basic patterns, because you can do whatever you need to do to make your knitwear fit very comfortably. Now we are going to cut a length off. We're going to disconnect from our working yarn ball, and we are going to secure the top of our mitten. I'm going to finish off. You are going to want to remove your stitch marker if you have one on your work. We'll get rid of that. And now all I am going to do is a very simple sewing procedure. If you would like to use the Kitchener stitch and graft the top of your mitten, you are more than welcome to do that. If you want to bind off very loosely, invert your mitten to the inside of the mitten and then sew the seam, you're more than welcome to do that. I don't like sewing very much. I'm not a big fan of the grafting, but I will be finishing my mitten by taking my needle and running it through the loops on my knitting needles, just like so. I'm just going to turn my little mitten over and run it through. You're just kind of picking up underneath your knitting needle, and you're just going through the actual loops. And we're going to make sure that we're not tying up our knitting needles at the same time. Finishing off a project is very important to get it to look neat and tidy. Now, what I like to do is do a second run through. Some people don't do this. It's just one little extra step that I like to do to make sure that this closure is going to be nice and strong. Remember, these are my barn mittens, so I'm out in the barn dealing with my chores. And my second run through, I'm just going to take my loops off the needles. This closure is one of the most basic, simplest closures to do for mittens. And here we go, through those. Through those. And now we're just gonna pull it tight. And then I am going to take my needle and put it down in the center, just like so. Take my other hand and just pull it through. And it gives a very neat closure. And then what we'll do is we'll turn the mitten inside out, and then you will simply sew your end in quite a ways, and then just disconnect from this string. So there you have it. Now we have closed the top of the mitten, and now we are off to make our thumb, and that will be coming right up in the next video. Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite wool gang, I hope you have an amazing day and happy knitting.